those who are complaining of this are, as I said, a tip of the iceberg. I would say this is probably very, very widespread. But I can't, under the circumstances, come up with any figures. Many thousands, no doubt, are involved. But I would say that the bulk of those are running to their doctors and taking totally unnecessary prescription drugs to cure ailments that, in fact, don't exist.
After a government protocol now applied to the general civilian population?
It's difficult to pinpoint everything at this stage on the U.S. government exclusively because these are global operations.
Okay.
The pattern, the protocols are virtually identical on a global scale. So someone is overseeing the entire activity. The government obviously is complicit because otherwise these operations would not be allowed to exist. Congress recognizes that these weapons systems exist and funds them and knows as a result of appropriate briefings what the bioeffects can be, yet they have passed no legislation prohibiting their use under unconstrained experimental circumstances. That's number one. Number two, given that these systems draw on existing power grids, it would be necessary for the FCC as a minimum and the Department of Energy as a minimum to have some oversight and control over what is going on. So obviously, with Congress, the FDA, and the Department of Energy, the FCC and the Department of Energy are knowledgeable and yet unwilling to do anything about it. So there is complicity, but the question is, whose bidding is the U.S. government allowing these operations to take place?
First of all, why are they doing it? Is it for basically a blanket statement controlling the population, and what do they do with this information once they get it?
I don't think they do anything with the information once they get it, other than to establish a harassment protocol which will follow that targeted individual for the rest of his or her life. That person be put under surveillance, so that their personality traits, their capacity to interrelate with people, their capacity for corruption or non-corruption, that seems to be a critical point, and even their religion factors into it. Following a period of harassment, they are singled out for preliminary stages of harassment, which would include gang stalking, entry of their private homes and apartments, followed by gradually intensified and ultimately extremely intensified electronic harassment. This is a pattern that is unfolded over and over and over. And it would appear that those being targeted are simply objects who I see as ultimately being disposable. In other words, I think that once full control is established over a major percentage of the population, and enough of the population is silenced and unwilling to stick their necks out, that we inevitably would be heading toward a Holocaust. There are no laws prohibiting experimentation with these weapon systems. You're talking to the wrong people. They're constantly, targets are constantly monitored, and if they respond emotionally to a particular trigger, that will be built into the protocol. If the target displays a certain sense of guilt or embarrassment about a subject, that will be built into the protocol. It's an ongoing process.
What I was getting at was we never got to the point where if you mentioned something about a religious group that may be targeted.
Well,
and what did you mean by that?
The way let me put it this way: I'm not anxious to start a religious war. I have found over the years that the persons involved, both in gang stalking, I've made it a point to get to know these people. I've had to necessarily. I'm not the type to...
Are you talking about the perpetrators or the targets?
Perpetrators.
Okay.
As well as I've been drawing distinctions. And what I have found is that the perpetrators appear to belong predominantly to one particular religion, whereas the targeted individuals do not belong predominantly to one particular religion, whereas the targeted individuals do not belong predominantly to that particular religion.
And what is the particular religion of the perpetrators?
Right. So at this stage, again, I'm not particularly enthused about the idea of starting a religious war.
Scientists and was one of the best educated countries in Europe turn on the Jews. Why did these good Germans turn on the Jews, who had more Jews living amongst them than even percentage-wise living in the United States today? Why was that? Because they displayed the same voracious ethnocentrism, power-grabbing, influence-peddling, buying of politicians, dominating of the public airwaves and the public media in Germany and so on, that they display in the United States. And I'm not much of a prophet, but that much I can say, based on history, that in the United States, mark my word, you will have Weimar conditions, and you'll have solutions to the Weimar conditions. It'll be very similar to what happened in Germany. The United States is heading in the same direction. And there's only one difference. In the United States, there are enough guns out on the street, and enough lawlessness in the public, and a revolutionary spirit that founded that republic. This is not Germany, where the only people that had guns were hunters and soldiers and policemen. The United States is armed to the teeth. They have a spirit of revolution in their blood. Their heroes are people who turned against what they call tyranny and foreign occupiers and so on.